to talk to you today about the handheld penetrometer. We're not really.
No, it's a great tool though.
It's a great tool. It's a great tool.
I enjoyed looking at this the other day, this shiny little thing that it is. Measures pounds per square inch and measures stress in the field.
Yes, yes, and as much as I love the handheld penetrometer, that's what we're not going to talk about today at all. What we're talking about today is inside the mind of an engineer.
Who's that going to be? Oh, it's going to be me. Okay.
Yeah, so, we introduce a lot of technologies to the industry.
Right.
Everything from liquid technologies to hardware, software, to sense what's going on in the concrete and also to control what's going on in the concrete. And one of the things that either we or our clients come up against is one of the gatekeepers, maybe a key holder, the engineer and the specifier.
Right.
Especially that professional engineer who's got a stamp. And this is our professional engineer, our principal engineer who has a stamp. And
That'd be me.
that'd be David. So we wanted to dive into David's mind and really understand what makes you tick when it comes to adopting a new technology.
Decision process.
Totally. But before we can do that, we need to know who is David W. Harris, PhD, PE, FACE,
Yep.
FSEI,
Right.
and I feel, am I missing one?
No.
Oh,
That's about it.
that's enough letters. So, can you give us a little bit of background, your education, your work experience, that shtick?
Sure. Yeah, I started in the University of Maryland, College Park, got my bachelor's in civil engineering, and then went on to Texas A&M, got my master's of engineering at Texas A&M. And while I was there, I started my professional career. I worked for Texas Transportation Institute part-time to earn money to pay my way through. And so we were paid by Texas Highway for that. And then worked for a while, worked for the Bureau of Mines, worked for the Bureau of Reclamation. Backing up a little bit, my first job out of Maryland, I sat down at the desk and they said, "Can you design a hotel?" And I was like, "This is what I do." So my first job was designing a 13-story hotel on the oceanfront in Ocean City, Maryland.
Wow.
So
Is it still standing?
absolutely, I was there.
You would think that was a question I knew the answer to.
Yeah, I went there for the 30th anniversary. I was the only one there. I was the only one to do it. It was the 30th anniversary. And it was prettier than the day it was built. It was
that's
just
awesome.
been through 5 major hurricanes.
Right.
Prettier than the day it was built.
That's gorgeous.
Worked for Reclamation. Reclamation builds dams. They own and operate about 400 dams in the western United States. Worked in design, worked in dam safety, worked in the laboratory, was chief of the laboratory for 15 years, head of concrete materials.
For the 400 dammed facilities in the western United States, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's some impressive dams that the Bureau owns and operates. They operate Hoover, which is most people have heard of. Grand Coulee, which is my favorite, which is in the middle of nowhere in Washington State, but a major dam.
Massively awesome dams.
Massive dams. They have about 109 major concrete dams.
Jeez, oh Pete.
Yeah. So very interesting career.
To say the least.
Civil engineers dream jobs. I can't imagine a more interesting career path for a civil engineer.
That being said, during your tenure at the Denver Federal Center and before that,
Right.
did you ever get approached by folks pushing new technologies?
Well, yeah, you know that story, John. We're not supposed to get walk-in salesmen on the Federal Center, but
Yeah.
they find their way in. I'd get 4 or 5 salesmen a week walk into my office and say, "Hi, I'm your best friend," and
Totally.
yeah,
I brought some burritos.
Yeah.
Here's some cappuccinos.
Yeah.
Do you need a t-shirt?
yeah. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?
Right.
Yeah, we'll take you to lunch.
Right.
Of course, in the federal sector, you can't do that.
Totally. Now you're on the other side.
Right.
Now you help us and our clients get new technologies into the industry. So this really couldn't be answered by a more perfect person because David has been on both sides of the track.
Yeah, full circle now.
Okay, so I've got 3 things for you,
Okay.
right? And it's all based on what goes through your mind when you're approached by a product salesman.
Well, I guess, you know, if somebody walks in with a new product, I mean, the first question in my mind is, what does it do?
Right, features and benefits.
Features and benefits. Right. And so, you know, and salesmen, God love them, they know their product and they know what it can do. And they're going to tell you.
Right, and normally it's some type of a data dump.
In most of my conversations, it's just sort of a best thing there's ever been.
Right.
Can't live without it.
Right.
You know, that's pretty much the first part of the conversation.
One of the things that I have found is that, and I'm guilty of this,
Right.
is that I oftentimes don't identify the pain and the need of the engineer. So I'll be talking to a damn engineer and I'll be talking about splitting tensile strength or the importance of de-icing salt and de-icing. I'm not talking about what they care about. Where they might care about that, but they'll care more about underwater abrasion.
That's right. I mean, you know, engineers are problem solvers in general. I mean, you spend all this time learning technology and science and all this stuff, but in the end, the bottom line is engineers solve problems.
Right.
They either design something from scratch
Right.
that's needed, or they, in most cases with the Bureau, you have something that already exists, and you're in some type of, you know, life cycle, you know, service life. So you have problems you need to fix.
Right. So that was the second piece of it. Features and benefits are great,
Yeah.
but one of the things that I've seen that engineers care about the most is engineers, service life analysis, and a cost life analysis. We're gonna do a live action role play in a couple minutes
Yeah.
and create a scenario. We'll see how David analyzes it. But showing that long-term impact of using the product and how the taxpayer or the owner is going to save money. While engineers don't normally care about the bottom line, they do care to some degree about how much has to go into a maintenance budget and how much that long-term budget is going to affect their other projects.
Yeah, well, you know, engineers are people are different engineers are different. So if you're a design engineer, then you want to make the best design and get it out to construction.
Okay.
If you're a construction engineer, you want to get it built and get it in operation.
Okay.
If you're on the O&M side, now you're worried about
Right.
service life, how long it's going to last and whatnot. So when I was on the design side, it was all about, you know, getting that design done and throwing it over the wall to the construction folks. When I was chief of O&M,
Time and cost.
that's a different life.
Right.
Literally. That's a different decision process. Right.
So, I think the last thing that I brought up in my notes was looking like a fool.
Yeah.
Is that something that you were concerned about when you looked at new products? That if you adopted a new technology and that tech fell flat on its face, you would be held accountable for that?
Well, partly. Reclamation was a wonderful place to work. They were very invitational. They were very inviting of new ideas and new concepts.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if you're if you're going to spend $500 million on a dam, you can't discover 4 months later you made a mistake.
Right.
You have to tear all that out. So, you you have to be kind of cautious about how you make those decisions and how you try things. I think that's probably one of the keys and we work with that a lot here. We try to encourage people to do demonstrations, or when I work for some other consulting firms and people will come to us with a new idea or product, I'd say, let's put it somewhere where worst case, if we have to, we can take it back out.
Right.
Let's try it on a driveway, a sidewalk, let's try it
A block.
a block, if it's a water tank, let's do the lid, let's not do the base. I mean,
That's actually a really, really good idea.
if it's a canal, let's not choose a canal that runs every day. Let's choose a canal that's seasonal. That's actually a better test anyway. So, so you kind of go through that a little bit.
That vetting process.
That vetting process, and that's the right term.
All of this comes down to when an engineer is approached with a new product that they really haven't used, and they have to make a decision on that vetting process to start what goes through their mind. And we're going to go ahead and do that. And we've got two technologies here from Markham, Acuron 7000 and Acuron 2000, and they're both used to spray on top of the concrete surface. They're colloidal silica hydrogel based technology, and they're going to seal, heal, and densify the concrete over time and basically give you some life back to your concrete. So if your concrete is 10, 15 years old and it's seen some pitting and flaking and scaling at the surface, and you might have some steel at the surface that now is starting to corrode, or at least you see the bleeding coming through, this will get you back some of that service life. So you're not tearing out that concrete 5 to 10 years early, or you can get 5 to 10 years more out of that same concrete surface.
Right.
So I'm a salesman.
That's a pretty good sales pitch.
That was a pretty good sales pitch. Well, I mean, there's three very things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to recognize who you are, principal engineer, PE, with all those credentials, who you work for, the damned, the Denver Federal Center on all these damn facilities, and you work for the Denver Federal Center. You work for the taxpayer.
In the end, that's right.
And I mean that with all due respect.
Absolutely. Bottom line, that's who we work for.
So that being said, it is your job to use, whether or not you or your predecessors did, it's your job to use the taxpayer's dollar to the best ability. Work smarter rather than harder.
Right.
If we can save you 5 to 10 years on your structure, and you can allocate that budget somewhere else, either by maintaining or building, that's a win in both of our books.
Right.
So this technology has been shown to do exactly that, and it's been in place 20 years on multiple facilities. Facilities that see more wear and tear than your silly little dams, locks, levees, and spillways. I'm just kidding. No, but what I'm saying is it has been through the ringer in the lab and the field. I have data to show you both what goes through your head at this point.
Well, I'd for sure like to see your data. I'd like to see your case histories. We've got some spillway problems. We've had spillways in operation 50, 60 years, 80 years in some cases. How many spillways has this been used on?
Zero.
Zero spillways.
That's why I said structures that get a little bit more wear and tear than your spillways. Concrete wharfs, barges, and infrastructure that only get banged up by ships, but also see wetting and drying cycles, an excessive amount of sulfates, not only from the water, but also from the coarse and fine aggregate used in the concrete.
Well, John, a spillway, it sits there most of the time, by itself, and it's just happy, sun's out, it gets cold, gets hot, those things.
Sure.
And then we get the 100-year flood.
Boom.
And here comes this extremely high velocity water rushing down there, wants to pluck and pick stuff out. What experience in your case histories have you had with a high velocity water?
So the thing that I feel like you're concerned about, if I'm hallucinating, let me know. Doesn't hurt my feelings. But when I picture it, that high velocity is not just water. It's also coming with some type of turbidity, some particle in solution, whether that's sand, rock, tree branches, animals.
Yeah.
So you have this
That's true.
underwater abrasion. And I think that's what might be your concern. And what we have found with colloidal silica based technologies is that when you do get them into that top surface of the concrete, we see densification and a greater resistance to that underwater abrasion, both in the hydrated cement matrix as well as around the interface of the aggregate, ultimately creating a composite that is stronger and lasts longer, which was the original argument.
Yeah, I agree that, there's the two cases. We have the freeze thaw, the heat cold and whatnot, but the most problem with tearing out a spillway is abrasion. Is that high velocity water and the abrasion. So do you have data that shows underwater abrasion performance?
For colloidal silica,
Yes.
colloidal silica hydrogels, we don't have that technology, or we don't have that test yet. But good concrete practices dictate that even if we want to move forward with you, we would need to do some type of demo or pilot. So what we can do is we can set up those tests now, so that when we get ready to make a final decision after you've looked at all the initial data, we can have that data in hand to help you move forward.
Well, I'm a data guy. I like to make decisions based on data and science. I don't mean any offense. I don't mean to insult you anyway, but I'm just not a hand-waving kind of guy. This artistic hand-waving just doesn't convince me at all.
Right.
So I'm going to need some data. If you can
Absolutely.
bring me some underwater data, that would be good for spillways or canals or pipelines or those kinds of things. So we look at that, and then we've got a couple projects coming up. I don't have any research money.
Understood.
I got squat. I mean, I just don't have any, but I do have some projects coming up.
And we do have resources to put towards doing that underwater abrasion test for you.
Ah, well, that would be handy. Now, as a government agency, we have to be careful with pre-selection. But
Understood.
obviously, we can look at data and look at stuff from industry
Understood.
because we want to use the best products.
And
But like I said, we've got a project coming up. Could we be ready to do a demo, say, in a 6 months time period?
absolutely, what we could do is we can create our own research program through the Percy Graham Concrete Institute and publish that data publicly. So it's not just you, but the entirety. That's what we do for a living.
Right.
We have to help educate the industry, architects, engineers alike, to help make these tough decisions. And what you have to recognize from Davis' hand, he said something very specific, and I just love it. There is no artistic hand waving. We're not wizards in this industry. We need the proof in the pudding to make those tough decisions, because the structures that David owned, and some of them I think you still own, we're talking multi-million-dollar structures.
Oh yeah, easy. I mean, you're looking at the upgrades at Folsom. That's multiple $1 billion.
And then if something goes wrong, it also means people's lives.
Yeah, it could.
So when you're talking to an engineer, you have to understand that the ethics and the obligations and the responsibility of that qualified individual, that stamp that you have to convince all of that. And there was a wonderful engineer who once told me, John, I will never make a 45-year decision based off of a 45-minute conversation.
Yeah, but I think that 45-minute conversation can plant the seed
Totally.
and water it.
Right.
We can from my new side now, I think we could harvest that later.
Absolutely.
But it's a slow process. I
Right.
mean, it's just,
Totally.
it's a slow process.
But it's a process that, as long as you're married to that process, and as long as you're okay and you know going in what, it's a process just like anything else, and you can get through that process, and there is conversion.
Yeah, at the Bureau, at Reclamation, what was key when we were looking at products was, as I said, there we had a research budget, but it was fairly small, and it was spread very widely.
Sure.
But the projects were always interested in looking at things and how to make their project. Our project managers at Reclamation were some of the greatest engineers in the world. I mean, they were incredible people. And they were always willing to work something in what they were doing, as long as there was an escape route, like I said originally. You can't put something in the middle of a dam and then wish you hadn't.
That's I think that's words to live by.
Yeah.
That's words to live by. So,
And with regard to the comments on career or job, I mean, at the Bureau at Reclamation, our jobs weren't threatened. I mean, if something went wrong in the field or in a construction project, we weren't going to get fired. I
Right.
mean, that wasn't our worry. But if you make a few bad decisions, you're also not going to raise up.
right.
I mean, I raised from the drafting table, up to, chief of the lab, chief of O&M,
Right.
head of division of engineering.
It wasn't because you made mistakes.
Yeah, you're allowed to make some. I mean, Harry C. H. Bolton C. when I studied at Berkeley. He looked down at me one day and he said, Mr. Harris, do you know why I'm the #1 dams consultant in the world? And I looked up at him and I said, because you're H. Bolton C. And he looked back down at me and he says, no, the reason I'm the #1 dams consultant in the world is I've never been wrong.
Oof.
He said, and the reason I've never been wrong is I haven't done everything that's been done, but I know everything that's been done. So I remember that like it was yesterday.
Those are some words to live by and live up to. Dang.
So I think that's the key.
Yeah.
When we walk in to talk to somebody, we need to know something about what they're doing. We need to have some idea what their needs are. We need some breadth of technical knowledge about our product and how it fits into their picture.
Totally.
And, you know, we're not going to be buddy-buddy. We're not going to be drinking buddies. We're not going to go out with our families together for dinner. But we need a partnership. We need a professional relationship that I need the help and you're going to provide in that niche. You're going to provide that help.
And that's why I volunteered that work. And of course, I can't volunteer any work for any company.
Right.
But that being said, if a company recognizes their need to infuse the industry with some type of education altruistically, going that route of, hey, I'm not going to do a project for your job. I'm going to do a project for the public sector.
Right.
I'm going to do research that's going to help, and if it helps you, great, but it's really for the entire public sector.
That's right. I mean, in some cases when you and I deal with, you know, DOTs, they say, well, you know, paragraphs J.10.1.2.3.C.
Love those paragraphs.
You know, and they're good paragraphs.
Yep.
We have to deal with that. We have to know what they're talking about. We have to know what we have fits in to their specifications. Or,
Adjust.
as we've done in some cases, we've actually written special
Right.
provisions
Right.
for specifications. So we need to be prepared to do that if that's a need of the client.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we do a great job at doing that. So the impetus of this chat today was to get into the mind of an engineer. It's like opening up a clock face. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean, the gears. There's so many gears.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that you get something out of this. So if you have any questions, if you need a little bit more collateral to help you talk to folks in the industry
Right.
like us, like David,
Right.
then please let us know. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Shoot us a direct message, throw a comment in the section below, all that jazz. But thanks for your time.
Thanks for the questions, John.
No problem. Go Concrete.
Beat asshole.